Hello everybody and welcome back to another Kings of War battle report. I'm Visibly Riley, and today we have Empire of Dust versus Varangur. This battle was fought at 20 to 50 points and the scenario was Dominate. So first off, we have my opponent's army, or a rough approximation of it. We start out with the Troll King's Horde formation, which involves the Cave Troll King and 2 hordes of Cave Trolls. I believe all 3 of those gain Headstrong in this formation. Then we have a regiment of Snare Clan Poachers, which are the named regiment of Night Raiders. I believe they gain Stealthy. Then we have 2 regiments of Sons of Korgan, both of whom have Fury. Then we have 2 regiments of Thralls, a regiment of Mounted Sons of Korgan with Fury and Caterpillar Potion, a troop of Tundra Wolves, 2 Magi, both of whom have Banechant 2, and a Frost Giant with Blizzard 2. Now, before I get into what I like about this list, I will mention that I couldn't figure out what 20 points, there's 20 points missing, right? And you might be thinking it's obviously an Inspiring Talisman on one of the Magi, right? That would be a great buy, and in fact, it's something that I would have expected, but I know for a fact it isn't, since I asked about it in the game. So yeah, that affects my thoughts on the list as well, which are that I don't think you need to go super hard on Inspiring, especially with this amount of Fury and Headstrong in it. An army, right? So I would still like one source though, because there's only the Cave Troll King. He's only inspiring to the Cave Trolls. So I'd like one of those Magi to have the Inspiring Talisman for that 20 points that I'm missing. Wherever it is, take it off that, put it into the Inspire. Otherwise, I think it's a cool list. Yeah, very interesting to see this evolution of infantry Varangur. Moving forward, this is my Empire of Dust list. You've seen it before. It starts out with the Mummy's Revenge formation, which involves a Cursed High Priest. I gave mine heal 4, then 2 regiments of Mummies, and the Mummies both gain Vicious and Elite in that formation. Then I have a horde of Skeleton Archers, a horde of Skeleton Warriors with Banner the Griffin, a horde of Enslaved Guardians with the Orcish Skull Pole, 2 regiments of Revenant Chariots, a Pharaoh on Chariot with Blade of Slashing and Blizzard 2, Mortibris, a Bone Giant, a Scorpion Husk, and the Soul Snare. So my thoughts on this list as we playtest it more are that, yeah, the Scorpion Husk is just not very good. I wouldn't say it's super below average, but I would say it's pretty below average, especially when you're talking about internal balance. So compared to a Bone Giant or a Bone Dragon, I mean, there's that bit where it's 45 points fewer than the Bone Giant and it's 55 points under the Bone Dragon, right? And it's like, well, it is cheaper than those things. But at the end of the day, I would just find the points. So I'm running it because I want to give it a shot. I own a lot of Scorpions, and I love the old Tomb King Scorpion model. It's one of my favorites. So, in terms of Tomb Kings, not in terms of models as a whole. But yeah, I don't know if they gave it Pathfinder or Nimble. I've seen some suggestions for that. I look at that and go like, yeah, but then it's just instead of being a terrible Bone Giant, it's a terrible Bone Dragon. I would really like it to see it have melee 3. I think that would be pretty. It might be a little too insane, as it's still a Shambler. I get why they're wary of giving 3+ melee to Shamble, but they did it to the Enslaved Guardians. I don't know. I think the Scorpion Husk could have it. Anyway, that's my thoughts on the army so far. Moving forward, here is the table. So real quick, let's talk about Dominate. It's a pretty simple scenario. So Dominate has a big zone in the center of the table. And then starting from the center point, there is a 12-inch radius. And then at the end of the game, the players count up their unit strength from units that are either wholly or mostly within with their footprint within that zone. Add up their unit strength, and the person with the highest unit strength wins. So it's just a classic King of the Hill, pretty simple. Let's talk about the terrain real quick. So starting in the bottom right, we have a height 6 forest. Right above it, we have a height 6 impassable. Then to the left of that, we have a height flat cornfield, kinda. Then below that, we have a height 2 hill with a height 1 obstacle attached to it. Then down here again, in my deployment zone, we have another height 6 forest. Right above it, we have a height flat piece of terrain. Above that, we have a height 6 forest. And then to the left, we have another height 2 hill. And then peeking out over here, I think that's a height flat But no, that's an impassable piece of terrain. It's like we ran it as like a height 1, I think, impassable. I think it could have been in this terrain, which you'll see hopefully later in the report. I think height 1 impassable could be pretty interesting in games like this, but like if it were more towards the center of the table. But you have to be pretty careful with that, because things like chariot hordes or dragons especially, and I don't just mean like, you know, the fact that people are bitching about that because that's what one masters. It's just that flyers and units with shooting can really abuse low height impassable. So it's cool concept, but you have to be careful. So moving forward to deployment, starting on my left flank, this is the 1st Regiment of Sons of Korgan on foot with the Fury upgrade. Next to them, these blank bases are my opponent's trolls. So it's pretty unfortunate, as he has some very pretty trolls, but decided to, or I guess didn't pack them this game, so it's unfortunate. Right behind it, we see the 1st Magus. Then to the right of that, we have the 1st Regiment of thralls. Then to the right of that, we have the Snare Clan poachers. These are actually the, I think they're riflemen from the Dragon Empire line. I think it's called Dragon Empire. It's a line of fantasy Japanese models, and they are just absolutely breathtaking. I remember when the Kickstarter came out, I really wanted to get them, but I was like, I don't, you know, this was back when I wasn't sure whether I was going to play Kings of War or Ninth Age or just say fuck it and throw it all away. So I didn't get into it, and I know my opponent here ended up with an army, and it's breathtaking. So anyway, I hope he uses them more in the future. To right in front of those Snare Clan poachers, we have the Mounted Sons of Korgan with the Caterpillar and Fury. Behind them on the wrong base is the Frost Giant, and my opponent has ordered some 75s, but for the time being was just running this base instead. So I'm okay with it. It's fine. We just adjusted it in the game, right, to get the lip. I know exceptional base size, blah, 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 but it doesn't really matter that much. Right in front of it, this blank base is the Cave Troll Chieftain. To the right of that blank base is a bigger blank base, which is the Horde of Cave Trolls. Behind them is the 2nd Magus. Then we have the 2nd Regiment of Sons of Korgan with Fury. Then in front of that nonsense, we have the 2nd Regiment of Thralls. And then way off on the flank here are the Tundra Wolves. So pretty good deployment, I think. Very tight towards the center. Then with the Empire of Dust deployment, so this would be my right flank. Starting over here on the left, we have the 1st Regiment of Revenant Chariots. Then we have my vanguarding Tomb Scorpion, just taking this hill. Then we have both regiments of Mummies right in front of the Horde of Skeleton Warriors. Then we have the Horde of Enslaved Guardians. And behind the Enslaved Guardians, this guy right here, that is Mortiberus. And then just poking out his little staff here, or I guess scepter, is my Heal Priest. Then to the right of the Enslaved Guardians, we have my Horde of Archers. To the right of the Archers, we have the Bone Giant. To the right of that, we have the Soul Snare in front of my Pharaoh and Chariot. And then finally, we have the 2nd Regiment of Chariots. So I'll talk about my deployment strategy in a second here once I get into turn 1. So turn 1 ends up going to the Empire, or I'm sorry, I keep saying that, to the Varangur. So for my deployment strategy, my plan was, since the center is something like this, it's not quite that, it ends somewhere like that and like that. I don't know. So it's more towards the right of the screen here. So the idea here is that I've got some units that can take the center late in the game, while I can fold in my strong units around this right flank, which my opponents put a weak flank over here for. And then their strong flank, I think I can hold them back with just these units here. So the Regiment of Chariots, the Pharaoh, and the Bone Giant are the big ones, with the Soul Snare either being an opportunity cost. I think a lot of people are looking to kill these things pretty quickly, so I can sort of juke some charges with it, high priority target, and then also it can really put out some damage, so I might just start killing stuff. So the plan is, as long as I can hold back these units for a turn or so, and kill at least one of them, hopefully one or two of them. Like if I took out these knights and then I took out these thralls, that would be great. Or, you know, if I got lucky and took out, you know, two of the big units, that would be excellent. But as long as I kill one and I delay these units for the first half or deeper into the game, that would be amazing. As for my opponent's turn 1, you can see things just sort of advance forward as you do. The knights run to keep the battle line with the trolls, which I thought was interesting. I'm not sure he needed to do that, but I guess... oh, no, this pink die right here represents the charge range of my bone giant. So yeah, he's trying to stay just out of charge range, so I guess that does make sense. While on the left, I believe that these trolls and these Sons of Korgan are still within charge range of this Revenant Chariot regiment, but it's not that big of a threat, so I can see doing that as an opponent. You can see off here on the right, these dogs must not have been in charge range of my Tomb Scorpion. I really hope so, because either A, my opponent didn't take a flank charge onto a Tomb, or I'm sorry, not a Tomb Scorpion, a Scorpion Husk, and B, hopefully I wouldn't put myself with a Vanguard move into charge range, right? That's just a dumb move. So I'm pretty sure I was just out. So yeah, they don't end up charging. This picture, it looks like they're not going to move, but I think we just go back and move them later. Yeah, in fact, this picture also doesn't have them moving, and I think we did just move them later. But anyway, here is my opponent's movement. You can see the staggered lines. I think a lot of people in this area are really getting more and more into the staggered lines. It's a great move. It makes it so you can get corkscrews going, so pretty good. And yeah, not a whole lot to say. I know my opponent shot a blizzard from the giant into Mortibris, ends up doing 3 wounds to him, but Mortibris is a 16-18 with that rally 1, so it doesn't roll the boxcars, doesn't take him out. And then the poachers, I believe, shot into my giant. That's a great arrow. Shot into my giant, but do not do any damage. So moving on to Empire of Dust turn 1. So yeah, on the left you can see that the Revenant Chariots do take a charge into the Sons of Korgan on foot. And the idea here, I could have charged them, I could have charged the trolls, or I could have not charged, right? My plan with charging the Sons of Korgan, so I knew I wanted to charge because I want to I want to jam my opponent up. It's not, jamming isn't quite the same thing as tar pitting, because a tar pit is anything that it just sort of slows you down, you get stuck into it. A lot of people use chaff as tar pits. Now another thing that you can use chaff for is as a jamming unit. A jamming unit traps you on a certain part of the board and you don't really expect to live, right? Like dogs tend to be jamming units, not tar pits, right? While skeleton hordes are tar pits. So anyway, I know a lot of people aren't confused. I just wanted to go through the terminology that I'm using. The chariots are a bit of a mix, right? They're that I know a lot of people like to use medium chaff as a concept in Kings of War, and they're sort of that, right? They're tough enough to take a frontal charge from all but the most dedicated melee units. They can take a lot of range punishment, and they're still pretty cheap, so losing them doesn't really matter. So my idea here, I'm using them as a jamming unit this time, not a tar pit. So the plan is to just do a couple points of damage to the Sons of Korgan on foot. If I killed him, obviously, or wavered him, that would be, well, waver doesn't matter because they have fury. But if I killed him, that would be amazing. But I'm not really looking for that. What I'm looking to do is make it so these two units, since the trolls will almost certainly go for this flank charge, I want these two units to slow down for another turn, and I will sacrifice my regiment of chariots to make them do that. Also, if the miracle of miracles happens and they don't manage to take these chariots out, it makes it so the trolls end up about here facing this way, and there's a giant just looking right at their butt. So yeah, it's just the best possible position I could think of, as I already want to slow them down, so why not go for it? Now the giant's positioning is interesting here. I spent a little bit of time on it. So basically he's within charge range, or it's within charge range of these mounted sons, but not within charge range of the trolls at all. So that's the plan there. And then I put the Pharaoh and the Soul Snare slightly out of the charge range of these guys. So the idea is with my frontage, these mounted sons can go into my front. I don't think they'll one round a bone giant, especially if I get my rally 1 over there. But I don't think they'll one round a Bone Giant. And then on the counter charge, I have a Pharaoh in the flank. If I want to do that, I can do quite a bit of damage with the Soul Snare. And a Pharaoh to the flank plus a Bone Giant to the front is pretty brutal. And this Bone Giant is just within charge range of both the Trolls and the Knights in case they don't want to do anything. So if my opponent wants to back up, that's great. If they want to charge into me, I think I can take it, and I want to just piecemeal this army out, especially with the Giant's huge amount of interdiction, which is another reason why, again, the Scorpion Husk, not that great, because a Giant speed 7, a Scorpion Husk is speed 6, so a Giant can actually zone out Trolls, but not the Scorpion. So anyway, that's the left flank. On the right, things just sort of advance forward. I end up not moving the chariots. Yeah, you can see the dogs ended up moving. I don't move the chariots at all. Mostly, I don't know if the dogs are within charge range of them, but I don't really care. Again, if the dogs go there, I can always just turn around a unit and go for that surge if I really want it, or just ram into it with the chariots for a while. I don't think the dogs will be able to kill me, especially with healing support. Yeah, I don't move the archers. I'm already within range to shoot, and I'm really just planning to hold them here pretty much the whole game until the last few turns to run them into the center to utilize their 3 unit strength. Otherwise, I plan to just pick its up with arrows for a while, since my opponent has a lot of pretty decent height in their army. So yeah, I can just pick on whatever I want. The center of the table is pretty open. This was a mistake, I think, in setting the table up, which is there's just a killing field out here. So yeah, you know, it happens. So yeah, that's about that. Oh, I do move the Scorpion Husk forward a little bit. So I'm now on the flank of these Thralls. I have a Surge available, as the Scorpion Husk is height 4 for being a monster still. So I can Surge him right there, and I've got like a 2-inch Surge. So even if I roll pretty poorly, Mortibris is also ready to cast Surge as well. And here is the shooting. I do end up getting that Surge in one go and charge in. And here's the end of the turn. You can see no units are dead, or 1 unit is dead, and that is in combat. I end up doing 2 wounds to the Sons of Morgana on the left here. Nah, it's not that big of a deal. I do like 9 wounds, I think, to these Thralls on the flank, or 7. No, I think it's 9 wounds, which is pretty great, but since they're a 12-15 and not a 12-14, I only managed to waver them. But I think that's even better, as I've trapped these Sons of Morgana back here. Now, what's missing is right here, which is the mounted Sons of Morgana, and yeah, they just get wrecked by dice here. I end up doing... I think my Soul Snare only manages 3 wounds. It rolls pretty poorly. But then the Skeleton Archers do 5, so it's pretty crazy. I take my Enslaved Guardians. They have a sliver of line of sight, and they've got range to where the Mounted Sons were. So I cast all these things, then I Wind Blast them backwards, right? Because if I get a... I think I needed a 3-inch knockback basically into this unit, and then they can't charge my Giant either, and it's just another turn that they have to spend doing nothing. But instead, I just roll a hot 10, kill them on the spot. So it just crazy. Dice happen. Again, having no inspiring is painful. So we move on to turn 2. Turn 2, things go about like how I thought they would. On the left flank, you can see, so the Thralls run through the Trolls as far as they can. Then the Trolls go for a charge onto my chariots, obviously into the flank, while the Sons of Morgana go into the front, looking like dead chariots there. The Snare Clan Poachers run this turn, so they decide that they don't want to shoot, instead want to protect the Trolls, so I guess that's a decent idea. This was a great idea, because originally I was thinking, well, these Trolls, right, in the miracle of double ones, they slide down here, right, and they get rear charge, or probably flank charged, but flank or rear charged by my Giant, and then flank charged by my by my Pharaoh. But because these guys are here instead, none of those things happen. So good planning by my opponent. In the center of the field, you can see one of the Troll Chieftain just moves forward, you know, surveying the battlefield, couldn't move anymore. The giant moves forward a bit to maybe protect off to my left, or go wherever they want. It's got Strider, so wherever the charge needs to happen, it can happen. These trolls just advance forward, and when they pivot, they leave themselves just slightly in the woods here. The plan is to make it so I will get a hindered charge if I do this. So pretty good. The Thunder Wolves get a rear charge because Scorpion Husks aren't the best. So because I failed to kill those thralls on that flank charge, I end up getting rear charged by dogs. Now, it wasn't just the Scorpion Husk's fault. My chariots also shot the dogs and didn't hit with any of their 8 shots. So, it's just, just dice. And we move forward. So, yeah, this is the end of the combat with the chariots, and I just get slaughtered. The Sons of Korgan just adjust themselves a little bit because otherwise the cave trolls could not face forward anymore. So that's what happened there. Then we have on the right, yeah, the Tundra Hounds end up killing off my Scorpion Husk, which is pretty unfortunate because the Scorpion Husk, even though it gets reared, my opponent ends up clipping this height flat piece of terrain while charging in. So it's a hindered charge, meaning they only hit on 5s, and then on the wound, no more Thunderous. Now they do, my opponent does land a Bane Chant onto them, so they do have Crush 1, but 5s and 4s, I think Thunder Wolves have 7 attacks each. So 21 attacks, right? You end up getting 7 hits on average. And then with a 4+ a wound, you get like 3.5, so 4 wounds, and then it's a dash 14. And my opponent rolls, only gets those 4 wounds, so I'm like, okay, and then just rolls that 10. So unfortunate, but not the worst thing. But just goes to show you how small differences, or how small changes to profiles make big differences. And moving on to you can see. Sorry, before we move forward, last turn I did end up healing. My Curse High Priest healed the wounds off of Mortibris, but this turn the Blizzard goes into my Cursed High Priest, does 2 wounds to them, but doesn't roll, again, the boxcar because I'm a dash 14 due to the Rowley one. So moving on to turn 2 for the Empire of Dust, things are getting a lot more heated now. The Varangur are pushed into my lines. So I end up taking no charges into any of this left side. The Chariot's getting popped there. I don't know, I guess I just didn't expect my opponent to move this unit. It really surprised me. Running with the Snare Clan Poachers is also pretty surprising, so I decided to go for something a little different and just move the Giant forward to be within surge range of the Thralls, hoping to kill them off, and then I can just face off against these 2 units. And then my Pharaoh has this little nimble path, so like I go forward, I turn, I nimble, and I go into the Snare Clan Poachers without actually touching this terrain at all. So that was pretty cool. In the center, because my opponent put that little sliver of troll in the rough terrain, I'm gonna get a hinder charge no matter what I do. So I decided to just take the double charge here. I take mummies into that side, and then I take enslaved guardians. Only the guardians end up hindered, so we're hitting on 4s with both sides. I take the other mummies and just park them on top of this building. I take a second and go, I really want to drop this unit, or at least waver it again, but I couldn't. Like, this was, I could thread this needle, right? But this was like an 8 or 7 or 8 inch charge with surge 10. I've got surge 20 total, but I just didn't want to go for it. So instead, I go for this surge 5 or 6 onto the dogs. I move forward with the chariot horde a little bit. Just looking, I've got a sliver of line of sight right here past my mummies to shoot at these guys. Yeah, that's about it. Yeah, I think that's about it. Moving forward onto the, no, this is not end of turn. This is end of shooting. So it looks like I did try to shoot these guys. I think my chariots did a couple wounds, but obviously I don't end up killing them. So that's a little unfortunate. My drain life rolls a little under this game. I go for, oh no, what is this picture? This is nothing. Sorry about that. This is the end of shooting. So yes, I do end up killing off this unit with my chariots. They land a wound or two, and then I roll well enough to kill them off. Granted, they're already on like 8 or 9 wounds. I get a great surge into these dogs, pretty easy there. I get the other surge with my bone giant into the flank of the other thralls. Then I go for the drain life. I end up getting 3 wounds on the Snake Clan poachers, just because I think I'd really like my Pharaoh to go right through them in one turn. I actually didn't realize they're 14, 16. I was thinking they were a little lower than that, like maybe a 13, 15 or a 12, 14 even. But anyway, so yeah, I just try to get a little damage on there to make it so the Pharaoh has an easier job. And that's about it. So let's go to the end of the turn, and this is what it looks like. So yeah, my giant does end up killing off the thralls, but it is very unfortunate because before that, I roll up the Pharaoh. The Pharaoh does 6 wounds to the Snare Clan poachers, so they're sitting on 9 wounds. They're 14, 16, so I need a 7 to kill them once. I fail to kill it, but I do roll a 6, so they're wavered. But killing them would have been really good because I really wanted the Pharaoh to back up an inch or two. Two would have been great because I needed the giant to be able to back up 1 more inch. So right now, the giant only backed up 1 or part of an inch instead of the full 2 or 3 I rolled. And these guys are just barely within charge range. So it's just unfortunate, but yeah, it happens. This is not like, it's not like I rolled double ones or something. It wasn't ridiculous. It's just an unfortunate event. But in the center, things go great. I kill off the horde of trolls pretty easily. I kill off the dogs with my mummies, and it was actually pretty crazy with the rolls there. If I remember correctly, like the enslaved guardians on 4+ to hit miss like 3 of their attacks, so it land like 15. And so that variance though. My skeleton archers, I can't remember what they shot at. Maybe they shot. I don't think they had line of sight onto the unit that was right here. So whatever they shot at, they didn't do any damage. So moving on to turn 3. So turn 3 for the Varangur seems like a pretty easy one. But my opponent, not an easy one, but an interesting one. So my opponent, yeah, gets the charge into the giant, and that's super unfortunate for me because I can take one of those units, but I really doubt I can take both, especially with Bane Chant to back it up. The Snare Clan poachers just back away. Now, if we go back a picture or two, this right here, that's a flank charge onto my Pharaoh if he wants it, and my opponent decides not to take it. So I thought that was interesting. I also missed that the Frost Giant is not like the Colossal Giant in that it doesn't have Vicious against infantry. It does Vicious against large cav and monsters, which specifically large infantry are not. So large infantry are just immune to the 75 by 75 giants, I guess. So interesting there. Now, I think my opponent did make a mistake in that even without the Vicious, I really thought it had Vicious. So with that, I think that these 2 units really needed to go into the mummies, not 2 monsters into the enslaved guardians, because those mummies are a dash 19 right now due to rally. They are not inspired. So no, they are. They're within 6 inches of Mortarburst down here. But yeah, really needed to get that because these mummies right here are just staring right at the flank, even if my opponent backs up an inch. So yeah, I think that was a bit of a mistake, but okay. The Magus here, I think, goes for a Bane Chant onto the Sons of Korgan, just hoping to get my mummies on 2s, so that seems fine. And here is the action shot. Everything's going according to plan. This is, of course, a hindered charge from that Troll King. And yeah, my opponent rolls pretty well, but let's start on the left. This doesn't... Yeah, oh man, all the wounds, the trolls do like 1 wound to my giant. All the wounds come from these guys, and I just felt hecka foolish. So yeah, they evaporate that giant pretty easily, and they roll insanely well. I think it was actually on double ones, so these guys just... Ooh, they just melted that giant. And the trolls turn to face the Soul Snare, while the Sons of Korgan just ready themselves for this Pharaoh. Now, in the middle, my opponent does roll I think pretty well, but unfortunately, it's just not enough. So the giant plus the troll king end up doing 7 wounds to my enslaved guardians. Actually, you know, I'm not going to say they roll pretty well. It's just that when he began the rolling here, the king ends up hitting and wounding with like 6 of his attacks, and I was like, wow, that's crazy. And then the giant goes and just flubs it. So yeah, only 7 damage there. They are currently a -18, so an 11 twice is pretty hard, or a 10 twice because my opponent has brutal. Doesn't manage to land it, and we move forward to the mummies where my opponent only lands 7 wounds there, and that's a -19. So yeah, it doesn't get the boxcar they needed to kill it, and that's going to be bad news bears with these other mummies coming in on the flank. But yeah, we'll see how that plays out on Empire of Dust turn 3. You can see my opponent's look of consternation. So, Empire of Dust turn 3, I take the Soul Snare, adjust it a little bit, and walk right in front of the trolls, hoping to make them go off to the side for another turn. I take my... Now, this was interesting. There isn't a picture of it, but the... No, I'm sorry. I'm talking about a different thing. So yeah, this is the problem. So originally, I take these warriors and I keep them an inch back from my unit, so I can still fall back. But then, for whatever reason, I decide maybe I knocked an entire horde of skeletons or something. But you can look at this adjustment, and it's not quite an inch. So yeah, I feel foolish about that, but it was intentional because I wanted, if I failed any of these charges, to actually be able to back up as opposed to backing my opponent up, because again, there's all this infantry back here. So yeah, yep, the mummies go into the flank, the mummies go into the front. I take the enslaved guardians, I get the counter charge onto the troll king, hoping to remove the only inspiring in the army. And the Pharaoh gets a little cheeky charge into this Magus. So yeah, I could just barely see it cutting a line, and then I have Nimble, so I move forward, pivot, and then go forward, and then pivot again and go into him. And because individuals state that, you know, obviously when you're charging, you have to take the quickest route possible. And with individuals, it's just about clipping them because you want to adjust the face as little as possible. Since they adjust to you, I end up not hitting this at all. So it's a completely unhindered charge as well. The chariots take over this hill, just looking to get some better shots with their bows onto the Snare Clan. While the, I did end up going here, and these trolls are just completely blocking my line of sight, so that's unfortunate. But hopefully the skeleton archers plus the chariots, plus Mortibrus, who's ready to go for a lightning bolt if need be, can take care of the Snare Clan. I gotta get rid of that unit strength by now. So here is the action shot. You can see here my Soul Snare goes for a bit of damage. I end up getting 2 wounds onto the what is this? The Cave Troll, or the Chieftain, before the enslaved guardians go. And yeah, I end up, I think I went for a heal with Mortibrus onto this guy. No, that's right. This is showing that off. I go for the heal here. I heal plus, let's walk a picture back. You can see regen put me down to 5 wounds from 7, and then I go for that heal 4, and I remove 4 of those wounds. While Mortibrus goes for a heal here, I end up healing 5 out of 5, so 4 out of 4 and 5 out of 5 on my heals, and then I go for the drain life. I only get 2, but that's some pretty crazy rolling on the heals already. And moving forward to the end of the turn, you can see it looks like this. So yeah, the enslaved guardians, even with that little 2 pip extra I got from the soul snare, I can't quite. Oh, and the orcish skull pull did turn off after I killed the troll, so I don't have brutal anymore. So yeah, I end up getting the king up to 10 wounds, but the king is a 16-18, I want to say, and I roll a 7. So I think it's on the reroll. I think I roll a 9 on the first bit, but yeah, I end up rolling a 7, which is not enough to kill them. I'm not sure how the giant. Oh, the giant took a wound because the not the skeleton archers. The skeleton archers shot into the snare, got them up to 10 wounds now, and then my chariots just shoot into this, doing 1 wound, because why not? I end up killing off the regiment of Sons of Korgan. That is huge. That's real big. Not a lot of... Removing a regiment of Sons of Korgan is just a great feeling, because wow, can they really dish out that damage. But speaking of dishing out damage, the Pharaoh ends up doing 5 wounds to this Magus, but doesn't do well enough to actually kill it, managing another waver. So rocking a lot of waivers this game and this turn. Since I wavered these guys, I wavered the Troll King, and I wavered this Magus. So anyway, moving on to turn 4. So turn 4, things are going a little predictably. You can see the Soul Snare gets charged by these cave trolls, and yeah, because I didn't back up, right? Because I didn't back up here, I am just a hair's within this unit of the Sons of Korgan. So the Sons of Korgan were just barely within range of my giant because I couldn't back up, and then that one is just a... I'm not sure that was a tactical mistake as much as a dice thing, but this one is definitely a big blunder by me because I don't set that 1-inch barrier, and so instead these guys end up having that charge. So just unfortunate. Obviously the Troll Chieftain had to back up to get that to work, and then the Giant goes into the Enslaved Guardians again. So they are on 0 damage, so it could go well, and these guys are definitely hindered, so meh. This Wizard just sits still, I think. Yeah, just doesn't move at all, while this Magus moves forward to give Bane Chant, I think. But I guess Bane Chant here, right, to get them to 2s to wound, and that's about that. So moving into the combat, yeah, my opponent does land the Bane Chant, I believe, onto the Sons of Korgan right here, and boom. So here's the end of combat. Yeah, the Soul Snare gets pasted by trolls, but yeah, so do the Enslaved Guardians due to the power of being barely within charges. So, and my opponent, yeah, so we haven't rolled regen yet because they had forgotten, but sitting on 10 wounds, that guy regens 6 of those off, so only on 4 wounds during my turn. Ooh. And moving on to turn 4 for Empire of Dust. So this is what it looks like before I move. I do have a lot of options here. The giant ends up, I think the giant is facing this way towards the skeletons. And then also decided last second to overrun a little bit. So, you know, this wasn't flush anymore, so I couldn't get, you know, my skeletons and then mummies, you know, and maybe chariots into both these units. So pretty smart move by my opponent. And here is the actual turn 4 for the Empire of Dust. So things are getting a little interesting. First off, I take the Pharaoh, and I could have gone for another charge here, but instead I decide to pivot to be out of 1 inch from the Magus there. I move forward, and then I nimble pivot, as you see right now, because I had this little, it looks very small here, but that's just a perspective thing. That's what she said. Or did she? So it looks a little small there, but I can fit my mummies just perfectly through this gap without hitting. Oh no, it's actually not that gap. That gap is too small, but that gap though. So this one, when I pivot past the mummies, right? And then I can work down this line that's just barely not hitting the Magus, not hitting the Giant, and getting into the flank of the Chieftain. So I see that and I go, this Pharaoh can't be here anymore. So I just take the Pharaoh and I run off. So Pharaoh gone, the mummies get a flank charge onto the Troll Chieftain, while I take a flank charge with these mummies onto the Giant. That was an interesting idea by my opponent to, I guess they wanted to go forward, so meh. I probably would have faced the skeletons and then, or faced the mummies and then take a flank charge, possible flank from the skeletons, because these were going to be hindered anyway. So, I do end up getting just barely a front charge with the chariots, and I decide to take it mostly because it pushes the skeletons down this way, because I want the skeleton horde to block off this charge, right? Now, I'll explain how that goes poorly in a second, but yeah. I like the charges so far. The skeleton archers are just getting ready. They're preparing their anus to get charged by trolls, but they don't care. They're the real heroes of this story. They do get their bows. They just barely have line of sight onto the Snare Clan poachers, hoping to finish them off. While I've got Blizzard ready, I can't shoot the Snare Clan because they're within 12, but I can shoot the Magus and I can shoot the trolls if I wanted to as well. And here is the action shot. So yeah, I shoot off my Blizzard. By the way, my opponent's Blizzard has hit 4 out of 4 for the first two turns and then got into combat, while my Blizzard has double one as hard as it can. But this turn I do hit with it. I end up doing 1 wound to the Magus, so you know, that's good. It's a good spell. And I end up doing 1 wound with the Skeleton Archers onto the Snare Clan as well. So yeah, it's going all right, I think. And here is the end of the turn. So this Magus, I believe, gets wavered by that 1 wound. The Snare Clan get wavered again because 5s are hard to roll. And then in the combats, I end up killing the giant, right? But yeah, here's the mistake. So I kill that giant, and I kill the troll chieftain, right? But I can't, so I want the mummies facing this way. I could have had the mummies like this facing that way, but yeah, that was the only way I could adjust the chariots facing, right? So they would be more like this, to then adjust the skeletons facing to be more, well, I guess it'd be more like this, right? But because I can't do that, instead I'm just gonna get flank charged by these trolls. So yeah, just a mistake by me. I decided to, I wanted to shove these guys down to block the the Sons of Korgan from being able to get anywhere near my archers, but the trolls were already within range of my archers, so who cares? I also could have taken Mortibris, and I did think about this after I'd done the charges, because we'd already moved the units, and I was like, well, I'm not taking that back. But Mortibris could have ran, since spells weren't a big part of this turn, could have ran in front of the trolls, because Mortibris is a 15-17 and doesn't afraid of anything, but apparently did afraid of this. So anyway, moving on to turn 5. So turn 5. Yeah, it's still pretty bloody considering none of these skeletons have blood. We see the Sons of Korgan and the trolls, the final horde of trolls, I guess the final trolls period, go into my skeletons. So we've got trolls in the flank, we've got sons in the front. This wizard is free to do whatever they want, and I believe what they end up going for is a lightning bolt onto my chariots. Since skeletons are only def 4, so both these, that's crush 3, that's crush 2, so they're just going to tear through them anyway. This guy's, again, wavered and wavered. So, yeah, it's a pretty short turn. Oh no, I think my opponent tried to lightning bolt the Pharaoh, but either way, no damage. And here is the action shot. Yeah, that lightning bolt just showing off the fail. And here is the end of the turn. Excuse me. Goes about how you'd expect it, which is these guys easily kill off my my horde of skeleton warriors. Now the trolls are facing like, oh man, such pretty drawings today. They are facing like this, so the chariots and the mummies would only be able to get into the front. And that is exactly what I do, but to the sons, not to the trolls. So I have a charge in the flank of the, if we walk back a picture, these mummies have an easy charge into the flank here. And originally I was like, I'm not sure I care about that, right? But in the end I decide, well, I don't think I need this regiment of mummies to deal with these Sons of Korgan. I don't think I do. But even if I do, I need to make sure that the unit strength is gone, and these skeleton archers aren't going to be able to see them. The only possible choice I had was either keep the chariots out of the fight and go for a cover stealth shot, and maybe I could have wormed Mortibris into getting a lightning bolt there. But all that would have given me is mummies that are hindered fighting Sons of Korgan. So instead, I just go for the easy kill. Sending the mummies into the flank of these guys, hoping to finally finish them off. Excuse me, since the, oh man, I could have just charged with my Pharaoh. I just see that now. Some days you're just not doing well in the old brain. So yeah, the Pharaoh has a blizzard target in the trolls. So the idea is I'm going to cast blizzard there. I'm going to fire my bows here and maybe go for a lightning bolt, maybe go for a bane chant. But anyway, and then I will surge them into the flank. So hindered skeleton archers into the flank, 20 attacks, just normal. Way to go, guys. And here is the action shot. So yeah, as you can see, I make it into the combat. This is just me. Oh, I think this is actually showing off the fact that I decided to come back and move Mortibris in front of the trolls this time, since I don't think they can one around them. I mean, they definitely can, but it's unlikely, and 4+ units are very swingy. So yeah, I go for that. I guess I should have probably pulled him back a little bit, so they'd be clipping this train, but I didn't think about it at the time. Here's the action shot. So I end up doing 5 wounds to the trolls. Not in combat, but with the shooting from the archers and the blizzard. So I'm like, yeah, 5 wounds. These trolls are, I believe trolls are a 15, 18. So pretty good start. If I can do 1 wound with the archers, looking for, you know, it's a high roll to even get the waiver, and they are headstrong, but any wounds count. So yeah, I'm pretty pleased with that. And here is the end of the turn, which is I do a buttload of damage to these Sons of Korgan, but yeah, not enough to actually kill them off. I do get a waiver because on the, that's why there's like, see all these people back here, they came over because we were yelling. Since I nailed the kill in the first roll, I don't double one it, but I roll pretty low on the second. I only get a waiver. They do have Fury, so they can charge either of these units. And finally, I do kill off these Snare Clan poachers, so that's good. And then both the wizards are free to do whatever they want this turn. And the skeleton archers. Yep, the skeleton archers go into the flank of those trolls, and you might notice the wounds have not changed. That's because they don't sink any wounds, and that's because they don't hit. With their 20 attacks, I don't roll any 6s. So, happens. And we move on to turn 6. So turn 6, the trolls, oh, this is a late turn picture, apparently. I just wanted to skip through. The Sons of Korgan go into these mummies, while the trolls go into Mortibris. Both the wizards decide to just move forward. I think this one is going for a Bane Chant onto the Suns, and then this one went for a Lightning Bolt, maybe onto my wizard. I can't exactly remember where the Lightning Bolt went, but wherever it went, it didn't work. And speaking of it didn't work, the end of the combat looks like this. Mortibris first, since I also stupidly, I'm not exactly within 6 of these mummies anymore. Only Mortibris is inspiring them, so I should have just run this guy, since, or not run, but moved over here to cast Surge, all those things, right? But I don't. So yeah, Mortibris the only thing inspiring these mummies, and my opponent rolls it, ends up doing 8 wounds to him, but only manages a waiver, and I'm not even sure it's a waiver. Doesn't manage to kill him, that's for sure. And because of that, yeah, my opponent actually kills these mummies on the first roll. Their dash 18 rolls the 10, easy money, and I'm like, well, it's a reroll, and rolls it again and doesn't quite get it. So yeah, saved by the bell there. Feeling good about it, especially I've got a flank charge here, and look, another flank charge. Yeah. Also, sorry about that. Oh no, I think we actually messed this up a little bit, but anyway, moving forward, here is my turn 6, and things are looking a little weirder. That is because Mortibris has moved to the side. My chariots come rushing into the front of the trolls. I sidestepped with the skeleton archers, and this is what I meant by it looked weird, because I think we misplaced the units a little bit, since the skeleton archers end up being just slightly at an angle from the trolls, or maybe I just moved it wrong, but yeah, they're at a slight angle, because when I just triple shuffle them down here to the left, and then but they can't pivot when they do that, obviously. And then when I go for the surge, I hit this corner point before I hit the side, right? And I'm like, oh, that makes sense, because I had angled Mortibris differently. But Mortibris is an individual, you know, he aligns to you, not the other way around. So yeah, this is a mistake. These skeletons should be in the flank of these trolls, not in the rear. But, you know, spoiler alert, it doesn't matter. The trolls did regen 3 of the 5 wounds I did to them, so the regen's on point this turn. But yeah, mummies in the front, mummies to the flank, and a pharaoh to the front as well. I take my chariots to the front here and take skeleton archers to the rear. The chariots are, actually both these units are hindered, so that's pretty funny there, because hindered rear charge from skeleton archers means that they have 30 attacks on 6s. Just splendid, guys. And moving forward, yeah, here is the, so it looks like these guys already had 10 wounds on them from the previous combat, but I roll a boxcar to kill them. There's no one here to inspire. I did a further 14 wounds to them. So, you know, really needed that boxcar, really needed there, guys, and just blow right through these. So moving down to the trolls, and you can see I do 0 wounds to them. So, the people around here were laughing pretty hard because these trolls are apparently unkillable, and I was really adamant about getting kills with these skeleton archers. I was really into it, but I can't quite manage it. So instead, we roll off to see if there's a turn 7, and there is. So here's turn 7. So turn 7, oh no. Oh, looks like I lost the picture, but what happens in turn 7 is the trolls end up charging into these, oh no, the trolls end up charging into the chariots. They roll bonkers, kill my chariots in one go, so that's cool. And then I take a giant charge, which is, I believe they end up facing like this. And it ends up with the front charge from, or it turns it into a front charge from the mummies and the pharaoh, while the skeleton archers have a flank again, but again, it's hindered. Stupid forest. So I go for it because it'd be fun, and I manage to kill off the trolls finally. And I make a declaration at the beginning of the combat where I'm like, if I do 1 wound with these skeleton archers and you die, it's because of the skeleton archers. And I do exactly 1 wound with skeleton archers, and I roll exactly the number I needed to kill. So pretty funny. Skeleton archers killing yet another army. Excellent unit, guys. Don't believe what anyone else tells you. And that's the end of the game. So within that center point, I have 1, 2, 3 units with a total of 5 unit strength. Within there, the skeleton archers aren't quite there, but yeah, it's 5 unit strength to 0. Almost a complete tabling for my opponent. Both the magi are up still somewhere on the table. I could have shot them with mortar burst. Maybe I kill the one with 5 wounds off. Who knows? But yep, that's the end of the game. Another victory for Empire of Dust. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I'll see you next time. Bye.